Here we go.
Okay.
What is a tough lesson you have learned in life?
Wow. A tough lesson. I think the biggest thing is really to have confidence in what you are doing,
Mm.
to trust yourself. And it certainly helps in this industry. I think just to be this is what I think, and not to be afraid to say what you think and what you believe will work or whatever. I think it's easy to get overwhelmed by people with a lot of stronger opinions.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would be, I think, what I
that's
would say.
good. Yeah. So every person has their own unique voice in what they do. What project have you done that you feel really represented your unique voice well?
Well, it's probably Fargo. It probably is. Fargo will forever hold a special part in my heart. It's just such a thrilling project to work on, and I've just felt like it fit. It felt
Yeah.
like it was right from the beginning. And I think that's probably the one. I mean, I love doing Westerns. That's one of my true loves because it's where I live, it's the people I
Mhm.
live with. But those shows are fun too. So, but I think Fargo will forever have its special part in my
That's great. And
heart.
you having your roots from Alberta feels so great foundationally for Fargo.
Yeah.
I have spent the majority of my life in very hot states. I think I would be like, what do I need to prepare for? So like you
Yeah.
having that language and that just the heritage, I shall say,
Yeah.
of being from a really cold place.
Yeah. It's
That does aid to your unique voice, I think. I would love to know if you have any words of advice that you tried to live by or words of advice that you tried to give others.
I think just remember that everyone you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, they're the same as you, right? And I think that I got nominated for an Emmy, but there's a army of 100 people behind there who were the people who supported me, who are
Yeah,
still supporting me, and those people are the most important people in your day-to-day life.
that's special. That's really great. And that's such an encouraging and collaborative statement from you that I think it's sometimes people take the easier road and think, oh, it's all about me. I did this, I did, instead of going, wait, like you're saying, there's a whole army behind me that I couldn't have done it by myself. And that's really beautiful.
Well, I truly believe that for sure. People
Yeah,
should
that's
treat
great.
everybody that like that. It's a group.
Yeah, that's great. Today's guest, costume designer Carol Case, has designed for Let Him Go, the Twilight Zone reboot series, TV series Heartland, Billy the Kid series, and so much more. Carol is nominated for Outstanding Contemporary Costumes for a Limited Series or Anthology Series or Movie for her costumes for Fargo's Season 5, Episode 4. However, she has done all the costumes for it. But Season 5, Episode 4, entitled Insolubilia, which that is a mouthful to say that episode title, Insolubilia. I hope I'm saying it right. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah, I think
Okay,
that's how it's
sounds
said.
pretty good, huh? Welcome
Yeah.
to the show, Carol Case. Hi,
Hi. How are you?
good. Is it raining there today in Vancouver?
No, it's a beautiful sunny summer day here, which
Really?
is so exciting.
That is exciting. So, Carol, I want to go back and ask you. I love hearing about just a little snippet of people's background. So, what did your parents or your guardians do for a living when you were growing up? And what were you like as a kid?
Oh gosh. I don't know what I was like, but I grew up in a small town in Alberta, which is a Canadian province. So,
Yeah,
and my dad worked for the local factory, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. So there wasn't nothing sort of artistic, particularly. My mom was involved in amateur dramatics, and I guess that's where I first caught it.
nice.
But yeah.
Did you get involved in anything cinematic or theatrical in grade school or secondary or college? Like when did that kind of first begin for you?
I did a lot of theater in high school and then considered it as a career acting or whatever. But I did go to art school to take costume design right after high school. So that's
And you
kind of
went to,
where it stuck.
sorry, go ahead.
Well, that's kind of where it's all stuck. And then did theater first and then film.
Gotcha. And you studied in England, right?
Yeah, I went to Wimbledon School of Art, which has a costume, an exclusively costume program. So, which was an eye opener just being a North American, spending a couple of years in England where there's so much and so much history and
Yeah.
so much art. Fascinating.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. So in Alberta, is it one of the snowy regions of Canada?
Yes,
So
it
you kind
is.
of you were a little used to that maybe heading
Yeah.
to the Fargo series.
Yeah, it's, Alberta's not unlike Minnesota, really.
Mhm.
It's a very, very similar in culture and approach, and the people are all very friendly, but it's very supportive communities. So yeah, I'm pretty much from that world.
That's great. My grandmother named her cat Alberta because of the province of Alberta.
Oh,
So
really?
there you go.
Wow.
It's a good cat name.
It
Um,
is a good cat name.
yeah. Okay, so I'm going to do a little setup on the Fargo series. It's inspired by the Fargo film, the 1996 film. It's the series showrunner, Noah Hawley. He does a great job, I think, matching the tone, the pacing, and the visual feel of the 1996 film by the same name. Fargo's seasons do run independently of each other with new casts, new time period, and new crimes to solve. To me, it kind of along with that, other series I thought of that fit that same kind of an independent feel are True Detective, American Horror Story. So that's kind of a setup to the series. How did you get attached to the Fargo series?
Oh, well, there was a local producer who knew me quite well that I had worked with in Calgary. And when Noah and his group came through, they interviewed kind of the people that they thought might work for this show, and we hit it off right away. So it was a bit of a chaos thing where we're all in the lobby of a hotel trying to convince everybody of what the show is going to be. But it was kind of fun. It was literally very ad hoc, and yeah, that's how it worked.
That's great. You are no stranger to TV series. So you have done many series, but you've also done film. For you, what is a strong difference in prep for between series and a feature film?
Well, for a feature film, we usually have slightly longer prep, but also the biggest thing is you get a script and it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And very seldom in television series do you get the whole story. So even like season 2 of Fargo, Kirsten Dunst ended up wearing an outfit that we were scrambling constantly because we just thought it was one of. And then when the rest of the scripts came through, we realized we were stuck with that outfit for quite a while. So that's the big thing about the difference between, and also it goes on a long time.
Yeah.
Television series goes on a long time, and there's endless additional characters constantly. There's no downtime.
Yeah, it seems like there's more things kind of surprising you, like, oh, that's what we're doing. Okay, that's the direction we're going, which is a really good muscle, it seems, to exercise and work that, oh, that's coming at me. I've got to pivot. I've got to think of
Yeah.
this. When you mentioned the Kirsten Dunst dress, did you mean that you had to go and find duplicates of
Well, we
what?
did. We had made a bunch of the stuff, so
Oh,
we
that
were
was wonderful.
making more, and then some of the pieces we didn't have duplicates of, so and couldn't replicate. So then it was a case of treating it like it should be gold.
Yeah. Okay, so that's actually a really cool segue into in the current season, season 5, that's out right now. In the series, Juno Temple's character, Dot, she wears a yellow cardigan most of the time. Sometimes characters have to wear clothing on repeat due to either their conditions that the character is in, or the timeline the character is on, or the timeline of the story, which seems like that was the case with Kirsten Dunst. But for Juno Temple's character, you chose it to be on repeat. So what's the difference for you when you know, okay, this is going to be an article of clothing that this character needs to wear on repeat, but it's not based on condition and it's not based on timeline?
Noah and I had a lot of conversations about it. Noah's very involved. And especially with Juno's costume, we had a lot of conversations about what would someone like that. I think the word iconic is overused, but something that is recognizable, I guess, for
Mm.
her. And the color was something that we both went, that pops. We like that. We can follow that. The cardigan, if you notice in the beginning of the series, she actually has a different yellow cardigan. When she actually, I think it's, they leave the house, she leaves the cardigan with her, so she has a different cardigan. But the hero cardigan, the one that we see the most, we had multiples made right from the beginning because we knew that that was going to keep coming up and keep coming up. So that poor lady who was knitting just kept knitting and knitting and knitting.
That's amazing. So you actually had this sweater knit. It wasn't
Yes.
a purchased
No,
one.
no, it
Wow.
wasn't purchased. It
Amazing.
was, and that allows us to play around with size and
Mhm.
color and the texture because what we were looking for something with a little bit of a more vintagey feel.
Mhm.
And so that's how that worked.
So I saw that you used European paintings as inspiration.
Yeah, the colors, I think, is where we
Mm.
ended up with from all of those old masters. They're painted, the colors are rich and deep, but they're dark, and there's something a little bit foreboding about it all, but it gives a richness, I think, and more layers to it. You'll notice with some of those paintings where there's it may have had a red base, but it's got browns and greens on top of it to give it that patina. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where we were hoping to go with that. And Trevor Smith, the production designer, and I, and Dana Gonzalez, who's the DP, the three of us kind of had a lot of conversations about that kind of color theme and what that was saying and how it would shoot and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I love your phrase on this foreboding because that's exactly what Fargo is there's just kind of an ambiance of foreboding. And it's really interesting to me that costumes can help serve that same feeling. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just the DP and it's not just the actors. It's there's so much more that helps pixelate and layer all of those things together.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're all supporting this telling of a story,
Yeah.
and whatever makes that easier with the character and telling the story of the character, not just what's happening in that scene, but the background and the depth of that person.
Talk to us a little bit about working with Juno Temple and Jon Hamm in particular, like as far as collaborating with costume
Oh, okay. Yes.
designs.
Well, John's lovely. He's very easy to work with. And he and I had some conversations previously. And with his costume, I mean, I basically said to him, we want to just do the Marlboro Man. We want him to be that guy, and all those old 80s, 70s and 80s ads for the cigarette. It's
Yeah.
like that's the guy. And in fact, in lots of ways, he is that guy from the 80s, right? The guy who didn't quite make it into the 21st century.
Yeah.
And so, but John was lovely to work with. He was easy. He's very, very respectful of my vision, Noah's vision, and yet puts his concept onto it too. So, and he could play with anything. And he was so brave about all the cold, and they were both like it was so cold, and they were so brave about it all, and they just hung in there, kept another take, and they were probably frozen to death. And Juno's lovely. She's one of those people that you go into a fitting room and you have like it's instant chemistry, and you talk about the character, and she's very engaged in the character, and as you know, she's very aware of fashion, and
Yeah.
all of that. So she's very, very easy to work with and very able to think outside the box. So when
Yeah.
I would say, we love the idea of this yellow cardigan going all the way through, yeah, she could get on board and completely support it. And then she would be supporting it even if I wasn't there. She'd be going, I think I should be wearing my yellow sweater. Where's my yellow sweater? That sort of thing. So there was lots of collaboration. And she had a lot of costumes and a big arc, that character. So there was a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah. So you're heading in a direction that I also was very curious about on a couple of fronts here. First of all, you were speaking about how cold it was where you guys were
Yes.
shooting. So were there things or looks or layers, or what did you have to develop or come up with in order to make the weather conditions a little more bearable for the actors being out there, take after take?
Well, the one thing about doing Fargo is that going into it, it's going to be a winter shoot. So if you don't design a decent coat to go with the costume, then that's your fault. It's just like that would be dumb. So Noah and I have a joke with all the Fargos. It's like it's all about the coat. It's all about the coat. So that was where we first started, and often we'll end up making coats so that we can add extra lining. Like Juno's coats had extra lining inside to try to keep them warm. Jon's sheepskin coat there was a couple of them that were made a little bit larger so we could underlayer, give him more pieces underneath his shirts and things to keep him warm. At a certain temperature, there's not much we can do. But I mean, obviously trying to build in winter boots into the costume, the more you can keep in as a actual piece of the costume as opposed to additional is good. Other things that, we have electric vests that go underneath your shirt that are battery operated, keep you warm. Coming from here, this area, it's like you sort of get to know all the bits. And I would say I've probably done an awful lot of winter shoots. So it's immediately, I'll get out all the stuff. And we even had little vests made with, I don't know if you know what hot shots or hand warmers are, and the little pockets in the vest so that they were literally covered. At one point, Juno had probably 20 hand warmers on her. And yeah.
Did weather conditions ever bring shooting to a halt at all?
I don't know if they did in this past year. They have during previous Fargos, for sure. And there was a couple of days where there's just no way to shoot.
Yeah.
It's just too cold for everybody. But I think we had a couple of really cold days, but I don't think we actually stopped shooting. The crew in Alberta is all pretty familiar with that. They're aware of what to do, how to keep people safe and comfortable. Well, comfortable might be an exaggeration, but safe. And yeah, so it's a challenge to work in that kind of weather, but we seem to manage to do it every time. So it's you just get to know all the tricks, and there's a variety of long underwear to go underneath everything.
That's great. Yeah, sometimes you'll hear about like the camera froze. It was so
Yes,
cold, the camera was frozen. We couldn't shoot.
One of the seasons of Fargo, we were filming on a frozen lake, and all of the honey wagons had frozen up. There was no running water, and when we were about to shoot, and we walked by one of those plastic pylons, the traffic pylons, and it shattered in the cold. I know, I've never seen that, and I'm from here. It was just shattered. So we didn't shoot that day. We all went home.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, okay, so it sounds like in order to shoot properly in this cold of weather, be it for feature film or series, there's a lot more than just what you see on camera that you're having to figure out and problem solve.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's sometimes a lot more planning is required, and and a lot more, especially if you do any kind of studio work into, you don't want people roasting to death inside. So often we'd have to make two sets of everything. So one with all the insulation and for outside and one not for studio work.
For all the inside shots. Oh my
That's up. Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, it sounds like you should have been nominated for more, like for any other season too. Um,
I'm thrilled that I was nominated for this one.
I am too. I am too. So you hinted at character arcs in that you showcase through also what they wear. Do you mind talking to us through some of your favorite visual character arcs? And it could
I
be
think,
this season or any season.
right. Okay. Well, I mean, this season, I think probably Juno's is the one, like Dot's character goes through so much. And we start with, your basic, for lack of a better word, soccer mom, right? Someone who's at home looking after her child. And then we're hit with this amazing woman who's like with so many skills and so much survivalist spirit. And then we discover what she's gone through. And I think, and then we've got Halloween, and then we've got her stuck in a cellar in a dress and all of those things. So I think that was the most interesting because we go through this woman who seems meek and mild at the beginning and who's actually so incredibly strong and so incredibly brave, and what she's facing for everyone is quite remarkable, and how she comes full circle and we come back to this woman who it's an I think it's a fascinating look into characters. And we all know women who are like that, who look on the outside very unassuming and very unaggressive or whatever you want to call it, and then they turn out to be the strongest, most vibrant people you've ever met. And so I think that's a really fascinating character arc. All the
Yeah.
things she went through, and that would be one of
Yeah.
my other favorite costume arc on that particular year is Ole Munch, just because it's one of my favorite costumes. It was just fun
Yeah.
to do the kilt, fun to do all of that, and to take him from a medieval peasant through to the modern everyman in a sort of otherworldly look.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's really cool. So you were mentioning the Halloween episode, which is in Solubilia,
Yeah,
and there are characters from Nightmare Before Christmas, the costume.
yeah, yeah.
Did you, I mean, I'm guessing you had to make those from scratch. That wasn't like a,
The costumes themselves are made from scratch. I think some of the
I didn't know
masks.
if you called up Disney and you're like, hey, can we borrow some of your
Yeah,
character costumes? And they sent some over.
no, they didn't send anything over for sure.
They're like, we're not
I
going to
mean,
help.
I'm sure there was approvals that went on
Right, right,
at a much higher level than I work at.
right.
But we put together those outfits, and we're also trying to figure out what those particular characters, how they would put together Nightmare Before Christmas outfits. So because they're kind of an odd bunch, that
Yeah.
group.
Yeah. Anything Tim Burton is what the way I define Tim Burton, he's a little left of reality. Like he's just like there's
That's
reality and
good.
he's just like a hair off and that's what makes it
Yeah,
so weird. So seeing those costumes on full grown figures
yeah,
was like so creepy.
yeah.
But that's what
Yes,
you
it's
wanted. That's what you're going
yes,
for. And it
exactly.
worked.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
worked.
It's supposed to scare you.
It was. I was just
She's
like, I don't know
Yeah.
if I can.
They were a challenge, those outfits, because of all the action. There was so much, falling downstairs and all of that stuff that happened inside the house so the costumes were a challenge just to
Yeah.
be able to see and actually do the stunt work. The stunt guys were great. They
Did
were
you
just,
did you have to do a lot of workshop on them? Like, let's try this first, or have them come in and try them on and do some flips, do some falls?
yes, yeah, we did. And we tried to start that as early as we could.
Okay.
just because it just takes time and to adjust the stunt if you know if you can't do a flip and then stand up and see, then we need to adjust this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you
But
have to make multiples of those, or were you able to
oh
just do
yeah,
one?
yeah, yeah,
Oh my goodness.
yeah. Absolutely. Everything has multiples.
I
That
would
show.
love to see, do you have like pictures? Because I would love to see like the costume Bible of those characters. Like, I
Oh,
don't know if you want to reveal your secrets though, but like this is polyurethane, this is like
what it
cleaner,
is.
this is, I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
It was really
I probably have them somewhere. I'll have a look.
That's really cool.
See. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to do. It's fun to do that kind of stuff too, because it's how can you do this? Just think outside the
Yeah.
box, figure it out.
Yeah, a fun new challenge that
Yeah.
was kind
Yeah.
of tossed at you in the season.
Yeah.
So we talked weather as being a challenge. What other challenges? And I'm going to specify maybe unexpected challenges because everything all projects have challenges, but what were
That's
maybe
right.
unexpected challenges with designing for Fargo?
Well, I think the show Fargo altogether is it's very creative and it's very collaborative. So I think as I was describing it to a friend, the word pivot is truly the word.
Yeah.
And we'll go along a path thinking this is what the direction we want. And then, whether it's myself, whether it's an actor, or whether it's Noah, someone will say, oh, I don't know if that's really it. Oh, yeah, we shoot it in 2 days. Let's go this direction instead. So it's always kind of in flux, the show. And I think that's, other than the weather, that's one of the hardest things.
Yeah.
On the other hand, one of the best things about it is the casting is always brilliant,
Yeah,
always.
there have been so many fun actors on this series that you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that, they just keep rolling out like these big
Yeah,
name
yeah,
fun people to work, it seems to work
yeah.
with.
I absolutely, absolutely. People have been, and they're always lovely to work with. It's a, I don't know where it's the rule that you have to be nice if you work on Fargo, but everybody has been.
Maybe it's the Minnesota nice.
Maybe that's it. Yeah, maybe.
It's fine if it hasn't been released, so you don't have to actually say, but do they know who's going to be in the next season's cast?
There's no, there's nothing
There's
yet
nothing.
about there being. Yeah,
Oh, so it may not even be picked up for another season.
maybe. Yeah, I mean, there's been hints about that, but there's been
Okay.
nothing definite. So
Okay.
I
Well,
think everybody's been busy.
yeah. Does everybody kind of want there to be another season, or is everybody ready for there to be
No,
a...
I think everybody, if Noah has another idea, I think probably everybody will get on board.
Yeah.
Sort of everybody's in for the whole ride on this show.
Yeah. Now, I've lived in several states, but I've never lived in North Dakota nor Minnesota. But is there any look that you have in the series, and it, again, could be season 5 or any of the other ones, that is so quintessential that region for that particular look, or are they are or are there looks that you're like, well, this is just more stereotypical, or this is more like, yes, this is what you can find in that region for sure.
Right. Well, I think, now it's hard to say about that because with the internet and everything being so instant, I think people are way more international in their approach. I think, forever we'll fall back on the uniforms, the brown state trooper uniforms. They're just that says everything to me. As soon as I see that, even if somebody's placed a show in another state, I always think Fargo.
Yeah.
So I think that, and I feel like the fact that we're doing a show in the winter, I mean, that's it. And the
Yeah.
fact that everybody has a winter coat and everyone knows how to work in the weather, like knows what to dress in the weather. I
Yeah.
think it's the biggest thing for that.
You bring up an interesting point about bringing the internet into it because, you could look at a snapshot of someone from the 70s or 80s or 30s. And you can look at it and you can guess the year almost to the day. And you might have a high percentage of even guessing the region that that photo is taken from.
Right.
But you do it today and it's like, I don't know, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. I have no idea because we're all wearing things from
Everybody.
multiple decades and everyone's got the same look
Yeah.
kind of thing,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. We look at things differently right now. We look at, and more, I tend to use a lot of basic costumes for Fargo. And we don't get into the fashion side because and a sort of slightly small town look, like just to try to keep it where people's choices aren't as good. They may be able to order it on Amazon or whatever, but it's not as they don't use it as much, I think. And adding sort of little pieces of, grandma's 70s parka because it's cool, that kind of thing, I think helps a lot.
Yeah, totally.
And I mean, no one from California has grandma's 70s parka. Only people from North Dakota and Minnesota.
Right. That is so true. That's a great example. Okay. What do you hope is still in front of you?
Oh gosh, just more and more interesting. I love doing character driven shows. I love doing that. And I love doing the period pieces. That's just every costume designer's dream to have one of those big period shows, I think. But I would rather have more characters than beautiful gowns.
Yeah.
It's for me that the beautiful gowns is nice, but it's not the vital. And that's why it's something like, say, Billy the Kid, where it's not beautiful gowns, but it's telling a story. That I like that, to do that sort of work. But
Okay, you mentioned Billy the Kid. I'm actually going to ask you a question about that. So,
okay,
I haven't actually seen that series, but I'm like, oh, I think I need to watch this because on our drive just last week to our vacation spot, we passed Billy the Kid's, like where he's buried,
right.
museum. And I was like, we need to take our kids there. I would love to see that. And then my husband goes, well, we need to show them some sort of series about him or something first. It's probably not appropriate for kids. I'm sure there's a lot of violence, but talk to me really quickly, if you don't mind. How accurate is Billy the Kid based on what we know? We know a substantial amount, but not a whole lot.
Yeah. I would say it's about 50% accurate.
Okay.
I think it's 100% accurate to the characters and what they were doing and the position they were in. The actual history, we have had to combine certain places so that we can just tell the story practically.
Yeah.
And then because of the strike last year, we ended up shooting the second half of the second season into the winter, which is a little is not really when it was shot, when it really happened. So, but I feel like it tells a story. It tells us all those things. And because we don't know the emotions of those historical characters, but you really feel it in the story, I think.
Yeah. Well, and I know his person is not in Tombstone, but Tombstone's one of my favorite Westerns because I'm just like,
Yeah.
I love the characters of that time and the world of that time. Seems incredibly fascinating to me.
It is, yeah. It's quite an interesting work, and very interesting to costume usually.
That's cool. So most of the time it was filming in a hot region. Did you do New Mexico or where did you do that?
No, we shot it in Alberta, but we
Oh,
shot it in summer.
okay.
And so production had planned for us to shoot it in the summer because there's a lot of southern Alberta that looks a lot like the desert because
Oh,
there's I know it's a little known fact that there's desert in Alberta.
that is interesting.
But it's still a cold desert in the winter, but
Yeah.
it's in the summertime it can be quite hot and dry. So it's not unlike New Mexico.
Yeah. So you've had your challenges in both extreme weathers
Yes.
with your series that you do. Okay, so I have a few rapid fire questions. My first one is, what is a movie that you can watch over and over again?
Whoa.
Or a TV series? You're a series person.
I am a series person. Wow. I can't give you an answer. I don't know what that is.
That's all right.
That's funny, isn't it? I'm not quite sure. Um,
I know I started out by talking about X-Files, but that's one I could truly watch. I'm like, I gotta watch some X-Files. I gotta watch that series over and over.
funny, isn't it, how that works? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good question.
All right, but you don't have an answer. That's all right.
I
I
don't
won't, I
have an
won't,
answer.
I won't force you. Um,
Okay.
is there a favorite place you have visited that you suggest others visit?
New Mexico. I think
Really?
it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful. Yeah, it's right up there with New Mexico and India. Those are the two places I would go back to again.
Wow. Any place in particular in New Mexico?
Santa Fe, Albuquerque, that area.
Mhm.
As a Canadian, it seemed just, I don't know, like a special place. I'm
Yeah,
not quite sure how to describe that, but it was just said something to me for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, Santa Fe's real artistic. I
Yeah,
appreciate how much they support the arts there.
yeah. And the geography is fascinating, the colors in the geography and the sky. It's all quite beautiful.
Yeah, that's great.
Uh,
India, love it.
yeah.
Um, okay, this one's kind of a funny one. Do you have an example of Midwest nice? Or another way to phrase this is, what would be a favorite example of yours for being Midwest nice? Harkening
Oh,
back to Fargo.
okay, to Fargo. Well, I think it's a day-to-day thing, right? I mean, everybody's always apologizing. There's all that, oh, I'm sorry, or please, could you do that for me? Or I'm sorry to ask you this, but all of those, like, all that apology is stuff is the biggest, I think. As soon as somebody says that, I go, well, you're either from the Midwest of Canada or the Midwest of the States. Just one or the other. It's just all of that.
If one does not offer the cast out that oh, I'm sorry, can you, I gotta get by
Yeah.
you. If I'm sorry, I've got to get, are they offended? Do you know? Is that a general
No.
rule of thumb that you, or no?
Oh, oh, I don't think, I think nowadays I think it's an expected thing that
Yeah.
you're expected to sort of be aware of the other person's what you're asking for. But I think nowadays, well, people don't get offended. They just know that
Yeah.
not everybody's going to play.
So my husband and I lived in Texas, then we moved to California and lived there 10 years and then moved back to Texas. And when we first moved to California, we went to this museum. And at the museum, I got a little something, something at the gift store or something. And so I'm like, I'm from Texas, so I'm just like, "Hi, how are you doing today?" And he was so offended. He goes, "Well, I'm fine if it's any of your business." And I was like, "Oh, mental note. Don't
It's
just
true
ask
though.
someone, how are you doing today? Because they think it's prying." And so it was just an interesting, like, different regions,
Yeah,
different
different.
strokes for different folks.
But yeah, the culture is different. It's a
Yeah.
big continent,
Yeah.
and
It's kind of
how they,
fun that way. Keep
yeah,
you on your toes.
yeah, don't want to get bored.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Carol, for coming on the show today. I really appreciate your time, and I look forward to hearing any announcements if there will be a season 6 or not. Meanwhile, what do you have are you working on something right now?
I am. I'm doing two films on Vancouver Island called 1 Mile, and we don't go to camera till September, so we're just prepping now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
That's
we're
great. Did you get to use
prepping.
some of your team from Fargo, or is it a totally new team?
I have some of the same people, but mostly it's a British Columbia-based crew. But some of these people I've worked with before, so
Good.
it's all, yeah. I think it'll be fun. We're shooting in a remote part of Vancouver Island called Port Alberni, which is right in the middle of the island. It's beautiful old growth forest, and I think it'll be lovely.
Oh, wow. Oh, That sounds lovely. There's an
Yeah.
old suspension bridge. I think it's in Vancouver. It's like the longest suspension bridge. Have you seen it? Have you heard?
Oh, is that I've never been there. I think it's Capilano Suspension
That
Bridge,
sounds right.
perhaps.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
I've been on
Yeah.
that bridge, and it is
Well,
stunning.
there
It's
you go.
like, and I'm not a
It's
hiking
so
person, but you should check it out if you have
all
spare.
right.
I don't know if that you have spare.
Okay. All right. I will. I will do that.
You take your people out for a team building exercise.
All right. That's what we'll do. We'll run across the Suspension Bridge. Okay.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, and come back anytime.
All right. Thanks very much. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to The Voice of Costume. Check out voiceofcostume.com to learn more, see upcoming guests, and be a part of our growing community.